We're on Exodus chapter 8. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, Thus says Yahweh, let my people go that they may serve me." Now keep in mind, these plagues are an attack on the false gods of Egypt. We're told in Exodus 12, verse 12, "For I'll go through the land of Egypt on that night and strike down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am Yahweh." And also in Numbers 33, verse 4, "While the Egyptians were burying all their firstborn whom Yahweh had struck down among them, Yahweh had also executed judgments on their gods." Now that's what these plagues are. They're judgments on the gods of Egypt, and we're going to look into that more tonight. Now this first verse tells us that Pharaoh would not allow the people to serve Elohim. The true conflict between Pharaoh and his false gods and opposing the worship of Elohim. That's what it is. Verses 2 and 3. "But if you refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite your whole territory with frogs. And the Nile will swarm with frogs, which will come up and go into your house, into your bedroom, and on your bed, into the houses of your servants, and on your people, and into your ovens, and into your kneading bowls." Now, that's yuck. That's nasty. The frog, however, was considered the theophany of the goddess Hecht, the wife of the creator of the world and the goddess of birth. Now, Hecht was always shown with the head and sometimes the body of a frog. Amulets and scarabs worn by Egyptian women were used to protect them during childbirth, and they would often be in the image of Hecht for protection. Hecht was believed to assist women in childbirth. Now, the plague could be taken as retribution. Remember, to a decree to kill the newborn, all the boys. Here's a little retribution here. Consider the irony in the statement that the frogs invaded Pharaoh's bedroom, even jumped on his bed, that was in verse 3 there. Now, the thing, by the way, you can order your own Hecht, the Egyptian frog goddess statue. Back in November 2013, you could, well, their price is only $11, okay? But apparently they're getting more rare, because now in June of 2017, you can get one used one for $1,108.16 and $6.49 shipping. Now, I don't know if they'll negotiate the shipping or not, but Amazon. And there's only one left, I think, so. So anyway. Yeah, Cracker Barrel has them, that's right. Yeah, you're going back to the $6.95 one, though. That's not as good as this one for $1,100. Oh, yeah. Well, what I found interesting in studying Scripture, one of the many things, is there's only one other place in Scripture that has a reference to frogs other than this section. Only one other place. Does anybody remember where that is? Nobody remembers. It happens to be a passage in Revelation 16. Oh, Pauline remembered. Thank you. Good. Yeah. Now, this passage in Exodus 8 that we just read explains the passage in Revelation 16. Take a look here. Revelation 16, verses 13 and 14. "And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon." Who's the dragon? That's Satan. Okay. "And out of the mouth of the beast." Who's the beast? Islam. "And out of the mouth of the false prophet." Yes, Muhammad. That's the religious aspect of Islam. "3 unclean spirits like frogs. For they're spirits of demons performing signs, which go out to the kings of the whole world to gather them together for the war of the great day of Elohim the Almighty." Now, these 3 spirits are described as being like frogs. And like I said, this and Exodus 8 are the only 2 places that mention frogs in Scripture. So here's where our explanation is. This is, since we know the frogs come from Islam, this is a reference to terrorists occupying the land of their enemies by being a part of the people, their lands, their subsidies, in all walks of life, and intermeshing themselves in these other countries. The plague of Exodus 8 describes the frogs as being in the cupboards, in the bedrooms. That's not unlike the way that terrorists have planted themselves in the very fabric of the nations that they despise, such as the USA, Great Britain, France, Spain, Israel, and the rest. They're like frogs. They're in the cupboards. They're under your bed. Yes?
Did they do that in front of the White House?
That is a Capitol. Yeah.
Oh, it's not the White House.
I'm not sure which Capitol it is. I know the top two are in New York. And the one in the southwest corner, that's in Tiger Country. So, and I don't know where that is exactly. I'm thinking it's some poor high school that's been invaded. But that's how I'm interpreting these frogs. And by the way, I interpreted all of Revelation that way. I found these things in other parts of Scripture, and they're there. Now, these spirits, they go out to the kings of the world, which is the Muslim leaders, and convince them to invade Israel. And then Revelation 16 continues right after that verse. In verse 15, behold, I'm coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake and keeps his garments, lest he walk about naked and men see his shame. And they gathered them together in the place which in Hebrew is called Har-Mageddon. And the seventh angel poured out his bowl upon the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple from the throne, saying, it is done. See, that's gathering for this last thing. That's what this prepares. That's what this intermeshing into our cupboards and into our lives. And is it changing lives? Is it changing your life?
Absolutely.
Have you flown a plane lately? No, I don't want to either. It's getting worse, and everything that we do now has to be changed. And well, it's like the great city of London with their mayor says, well, in big city life, you're going to have to get used to terrorism. Of course, he's a Muslim. Mm-hmm. Yep. And he has ties to extremist groups, but that's okay. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. We need to be understanding. We need to be welcoming and inclusive with these people that want to kill us. Exodus 8. Let's go back to Exodus 8. Go back to the real frogs, not the symbolic ones. Verse 4, so the frogs will come up on you and your people and all your servants. Then Yahweh said to Moses, say to Aaron, stretch out your hand with your staff over the rivers, over the streams, and over the pools, and make frogs come up on the land of Egypt. So Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. Now, if the Nile was turned blood red due to either a huge influx of toxic bloom, or if it was caused by iron oxide and a CO2 buildup, the same thing would happen. Okay? Frogs congregate in areas such as ponds, lakes, and rivers, especially during their reproductive period. And the huge masses of dead and decaying fish would have polluted their habitat, caused them to invade land in a much, much greater number and much sooner than usual. The dead fish would have been a source of disease carried by insects. Thus, the frogs would die en masse, which they do here a few verses later. Verse 7. And the magicians did the same with their secret arts, making frogs come up on the land of Egypt. Well, they're already doing that. Okay? They're already coming up out of every piece of water and coming up in the land of Egypt. And the magician said, abracadabra, see? We make it happen too. See, that's there. Notice they didn't stop it, did they? That's what, you got some real magic there. Make this stop. Get this one off my plate. I'm trying to eat a burger and there's a frog on my plate. Verse 8. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, entreat Yahweh that he may remove the frogs from me and my people, that I'll let the people go, that they may sacrifice to Yahweh. Now, the fact that Pharaoh entreated Moses here to intercede with Elohim to take away the frogs was a sign that he recognized the Elohim of Israel as being the author of this plague. Okay, he realizes that. He realizes this was not a natural occurrence, but there was supernatural involvement here. Verses 9 and 10. And Moses said to Pharaoh, the honor is yours to tell me. When shall I entreat you and your servants and your people that the frogs be destroyed from you and your houses, that they may be left only in the Nile? Then he said, tomorrow. So he said, may it be according to your word, that you may know there was no one like Yahweh, our Elohim. So Moses let Pharaoh decide when the frogs are going to be destroyed and go away. He said, you tell me when you want them gone. And that's when I'll ask Elohim to do it. There can be no doubt that Elohim caused it. Verses 11 and 12. And the frogs will depart from you and your houses and your servants and your people. They'll be left only in the Nile. Then Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried to Yahweh concerning the frogs which he had inflicted upon Pharaoh. So Moses cries to Elohim concerning this matter. Moses handled this in a manner that would bring glory to Elohim. I love the way he said that. Will you tell me when you want them gone? Verses 13 and 14. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out of the houses, the courts, and the fields. So they piled them in heaps, and the land became foul. Now the frogs were so sacred in Egypt that even the involuntary slaughter of one was often punished with death. That's how highly they looked upon this frog goddess. Imagine the people of the land as they went out to gather the decaying bodies of the frogs and put them into heaps. Yuck. Verse 15. But when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. So the text here says that Pharaoh hardened his heart this time. But Elohim previously said that he's going to be the one doing it, hardening Pharaoh's heart. That was in Exodus 4, verse 21. And Yahweh said to Moses, when you go back to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the wonders which I put in your power. But I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. I used to look at websites that tried to claim the Bible's false and contradicted itself. And this was always one of their claims. Well, did Pharaoh harden his heart or did God do it? Oh, what a silly thing to point out. The evil was already in the heart of Pharaoh. Okay? It was already there. There are just some times when Elohim made Pharaoh follow his heart. Okay? You heard that. Christianity says you got to follow your heart, right? Well, that's what Pharaoh was doing. Verses 16 and 17. Then Yahweh said to Moses, say to Aaron, stretch out your staff and strike the dust of the earth, that it may become gnats through all the land of Egypt. And they did so, and Aaron stretched out his hand with his staff and struck the dust of the earth, and there were gnats on man and beast. All the dust of the earth became gnats through all the land of Egypt. Okay, these plagues can be grouped into three groups of three, and then you have the last one. The first plague in each group is announced in the morning, okay? The second in each group is announced in Pharaoh's palace. And the last in each group comes without warning. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Morning, Pharaoh's palace, no warning. Morning, Pharaoh's palace, no warning, and so forth. This plague comes without warning. Now, there's some question as to what's being referred to here. Could be either gnats, could be lice, could be mosquitoes. Here, Elohim is turning the dust of the earth into one of these types of insects. What he's doing, he's mocking what they had the earth god named Geb. Elohim showed that the false god Geb was innocent. Now, you may have seen drawings of old Geb before. Geb was the old earth god, and he came from Heliopolis in Lower Egypt and was the father of Osiris and all the other gods except Adam and Nut. He held the throne of Egypt, first of all, and he finally let his son Osiris take over the ruling. Every new pharaoh claimed to be a true descendant of Geb, and at the coronation, he had to get his permission to enter office. He also represents the valleys and mountains and was often depicted lying on the ground or with a goose over his head, as he was said to have laid a cosmic egg that contained the sun. He had a nickname, the Cackler, and his laughter started earthquakes. And Geb's wife was naturally his sister, named Nut. Any questions on Geb before we move on? That's what all the pharaohs did. They married their sisters. Keep in mind, they always did that because you've got to keep that bloodline pure if you're going to be pharaoh. So they always married their sister, okay, if there's one to be had, or else the first cousin. Now, how many generations do you go through that, and your pharaoh has an IQ of about 40? And that's what happened.
So that would fit there, then. My wife, my sister is a nut.
Yes, that's it. Verse 18, and the magicians tried with their secret arts to bring forth gnats, but they could not, so there were gnats on man and beast. Now, the turning of the dust of the earth into mosquitoes or gnats or whatever it was not a continual act. It says, Moses, what he did, he said, strike the ground with your staff, and it happened. Okay? And it was a big whoosh. A lot of the dust of the ground turned into these gnats or mosquitoes. The magicians can't copy that. They can't take claim either. So they couldn't stop it either. That's the tough thing. Couldn't stop it. Verse 19. Then the magician said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of Elohim. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he did not listen to them as Yahweh had said. Well, the magicians realized this was not a natural event, and they couldn't, kind of lay claim to it or take credit to it. They said, hey, only a real God, a real Elohim can do this. Verse 20, now Yahweh said to Moses, rise early in the morning and present yourself before Pharaoh as he comes out to the water, and say to him, thus says Yahweh, let my people go that they may serve me. For if you will not let my people go, behold, I'll send swarms of insects on you, and on your servants, and on your people, and into your houses, and the houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of insects, and also the ground on which they dwell. Well, this starts the second round of plagues, okay? Moses is to arise early in the morning to Pharaoh, tell him of the plague if he does not let Elohim's people serve him. And the precise meaning of this term has not really been determined. It's used only in this instance in Scripture, what these are. It says swarms of insects. We don't really know what they are. The Septuagint renders it as the dog fly. Now, Philo also translates this as a dog fly, which is a stable fly, or the horse fly. And many scholars think it's a reference to beetles or scarabs, which were common in Egypt and highly revered as gods also. Let's look at verse 22. But on that day I will set apart the land of Goshen, where my people are living, so that no swarms of insects will be there, in order that you may know that I, Yahweh, am in the midst of the land. Now, if these were beetles, which I think they probably were, this is a mocking of Kheper, or Kehpri, the alleged god of creation. His symbol was the scarab, as he had the head of a beetle. And if they want to worship beetles, beetles they get. So be it. That's right. The old god Kheper, which means to become, was the god of creation, or more precisely, rebirth, when he embodied the solar disk of Ra, raising again every morning. Which I think the solar disk of Ra, I think you can figure that out. That's the sun. Thus, the scarab was symbol of creation and family happiness, and was seen on jewelry and often placed on mummies. You saw the mummy. That had, what was it, number 2 or 3 that had all the scarabs on it. The Egyptians saw this beetle roll balls of dung, which became the symbol of the sun disk, and identified it with Ra and stood for renewal and transformation. That never would have occurred to me, but his name was taken into the king's names, and he was depicted in 2 human ways, pictures, or just as a scarab. No cult of his is known from the Old Kingdom, but scarab amulets appear from the oldest times. Yeah.
In Saudi Arabia, you would see the beetles, and I just wondered if it was a dung beetle.
Yeah, that's what they were talking about. It's a dung beetle.
You
Uh-huh.
see the dude taking it across the desert. It's interesting.
And then they're saying, oh, look, the little beetle's trying to make a sun disk. Oh, he is? Okay. I think you have quite the vivid imagination myself. But
Do you notice they have their crosses with them?
oh, yeah, this is the Ankh. Very, very good, Tom. Yeah. No, this is an ancient Egyptian symbol. The cross is. And if you'll notice that a lot of the Catholic cross symbols have the sunshine around the head, behind the head. Too. It's just an Ankh. That's what the cross is. And keep in mind the Greek word staros doesn't mean cross. It just means a beam. Okay? And exactly how it was used, I don't know if it was nailed to the beam, it was hung on a tree. That's kind of what I think. Or if it was just an upright stake that he was nailed to. Not sure. But how many Christians, like these guys carrying their little ankh around, wear them around their necks continually, and
Most of them.
why? If
Thinks it makes them closer to Jesus. That's why.
yeah, it's a talisman is what it is. Well, if Jesus was beheaded, would they have cigar cutters around their necks? I don't know. What's the cross thing? I don't get that. I guess I never questioned it before, but the Ankh thing is very, very, very interesting. Verses 23 and 24, I will put a division between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall occur. Then Yahweh did so, and there came great swarms of insects into the house of Pharaoh and the houses of his servants. And the land was laid waste because of the swarms of insects in all the land of Egypt. Now Elohim divides the plagues so that they won't strike the Israelites who are in Goshen. Verses 25 and 26. And Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, go, sacrifice to your Elohim within the land. But Moses said, it's not right to do so, for we shall sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim what is an abomination to the Egyptians. If we sacrifice what is an abomination to the Egyptians before their eyes, will they not then stone us? You see, this is another interesting thing about the Torah here. He knew that the sacrifices consisted of cows and bulls. Now, how would he know that if he didn't know the Torah? See, Pharaoh tried to compromise, but Israelite worship was offensive to the Egyptians. They worshipped the bull god Apis and the cow goddess Hathor. Okay? Furthermore, Moses had to leave the land in order to be obedient to Yahweh's command. You can't sacrifice just where you want to. You can't do that. Now, the cow goddess Hathor protected music, dancing, love, and had 7 forms. Wife to the sacred bull Bucus, she and Horus protected the royal couple, and she attended at the arrival of the dead king in the afterward. On her head, so they had afterlife beliefs too. On her head was seen her favorite musical instrument, a sistrum rattle. On top of pillars, she was seen as Heret, a woman's head with cow's ears. In the Old Kingdom, and the pharaohs were often shown with Hathor at their side. Sometimes she was combined with Isis as Isis Hathor with a woman's head. One of the still standing temples of her cult is at Dendra in Upper Egypt. Yeah. One of the 3 great bull cults in ancient Egypt, besides the Apis or Memphis and Nervus and Heliopolis, was the one of Bucus in the town of Armont in the 4th province of Upper Egypt, just southwest of Thebes. This cult was continued by the Greeks and after them by the Romans, and it lasted till almost 400 AD. Now, the Bucus bull is a manifestation of Osiris and Ra and was linked to the local god of war, Mentu. Verse 27. We must go a 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim as he commands us. Okay, partial obedience is not obedience. They're only allowed to sacrifice in the place that Elohim designates. That's specifically stated in the Torah. That's why they can't be done now. It's not because of the sacrifice of Yeshua that they're not done anymore, which is a popular thought in Christianity. They did them after that. After the ascension of Messiah, they kept doing them. Peter and John in Acts chapter 2, they go to the temple at the prayer time. What happens at the prayer time, the temple? That's where the offerings are done. That's when they're done. Paul took the Nazirite vow and paid for 3 other guys to take the Nazirite vow. What do you got to pay to take the Nazirite vow for? What costs money? The sacrifices. Yeah. They were still done. And there was no, oh, that's horrible. You can't do that anymore. No. They weren't, you can't do them. Here, look at Deuteronomy 12, verses 13 and 14. Be careful that you do not offer your burnt offerings in every cultic place you see, but in the place which Yahweh chooses in one of your tribes, there you shall offer your burnt offerings, and there you shall do what I command you. It's only in that spot you can do that. Now, and it doesn't say it has to be a temple or a tabernacle there. It doesn't say that. But that spot has to be available. When Nehemiah came back after the Babylonian captivity, he came back into the land, and the people were already there rebuilding the walls of the city. There was no temple built yet, but right away they started doing offerings anyway, before the temple foundation was laid.
Were they doing it on the spot?
On the spot. That's right. Doing it on the spot. That's what's necessary. On that spot right now is the Dome of the Rock. Verses 28 and 29, and Pharaoh said, I will let you go, that you may sacrifice to Yahweh your Elohim in the wilderness. Only you shall not go very far away. Make supplication for me. Then Moses said, behold, I'm going out from you, and I shall make supplication to Yahweh, that the swarms of insects may depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people tomorrow. Only do not let Pharaoh deal deceitfully again in not letting the people go to sacrifice to Yahweh. So guess what? Pharaoh's going to be deceitful again. Verse 30. So Moses went out from Pharaoh and made supplication to Yahweh, and Yahweh did as Moses asked, and removed the swarms of insects from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. No, not one remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart this time also, and he did not let the people go. So Pharaoh hardened his heart again. More plagues will follow. Stay tuned. Any questions? Any thoughts? This was an attack on the gods of Egypt. That's what these plagues are. They're an attack on Pharaoh, but also an attack on the gods of Egypt. Yeah.
Pharaoh wasn't going to let him go very far anyway. He wasn't going to let him go to where
No, right. He wouldn't have.
Remember he said that.
Yep, he sure did. Just not very far. Remember when Moses first started talking to Pharaoh? He said, thus says Yahweh, let my people go worship in the wilderness and give offerings. And his first response is, you remember what it was? Who is Yahweh? Well, he's finding out. He's finding out.
He already did.
I don't know if he did or not.
Look, he's some of these things you just put it out, you move out the door.
Well, Moses did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Moses did. No, Pharaoh didn't, nor could he have possibly cared less. See, that's why Moses said, well, you're not going to let us do it here. Because he knew what the offerings consisted of. Cows and bulls. And it'll be offensive to you guys.
Pharaoh considered himself a god.
Yeah, he considered himself a god. That's right. That's right.
Do you think that Moses had any pull with the Pharaoh court and all that since he was raised there?
See, I don't know. 40 years is a long time. Of course, it may have been Pharaoh. May have been one he was raised with too, just like in many, movies that have characterized that. That's very possible. And there's, I don't know. It is possible, but that probably at least was a part of keeping Moses and Aaron alive and keeping approaching him. Okay, out of the respect, and then I think later out of the fear of Elohim. So.
Well, he was, the one thing that I'm wondering is because he had a son, apparently he had a young son that was
Yeah. Pharaoh?
Yeah,
Yes.
and then his firstborn, it was a child, you know.
I don't know. He was in the movie. He was
Yeah, in the movie.
It doesn't say.
little bald head with a ponytail thing. I remember that. But I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know what we're told.